Dragon can now land on the moon. That's right, SpaceX's regular crew capsule just got lunar capabilities nobody expected. While NASA burns $4 billion per SLS launch, SpaceX quietly engineered something incredible. The same Dragon that splashes down in Earth's oceans, it's being transformed into a moon lander. But here's the problem. Dragon was built for 400-kilometer trips to the space station. The moon is 384,400 kilometers away, nearly 1,000 times farther. How do you make that work? The engineering challenges are brutal. Surviving lunar re-entry at 11 kilometers per second, handling deep space radiation, landing on rough terrain without water to cushion impact. Yet with Artemis 3 just 2 years away and Starship facing delays, this might be our only shot at returning to the moon on schedule. Can SpaceX actually pull off the most ambitious spacecraft modification ever attempted? The answer will shock you. Let's dive right in. The crisis that changed everything. The Trump administration just delivered the shock of NASA's lifetime. Budget cuts that nobody saw coming. From $24.8 billion down to $18.8 billion. That's a $6 billion slash that kills expensive programs like SLS and Orion in their tracks. But while NASA scrambles to save their multi-billion-dollar rockets, SpaceX already has their backup plan ready, and it's not what anyone expected. Here's the mind-blowing part. NASA has spent over $23.7 billion developing Orion. SpaceX built Dragon for just $1.7 billion. That's 14 times cheaper. Which approach sounds smarter when budgets are tight? The answer might surprise you. The Starship disaster nobody talks about. Everyone's betting on Starship to get us back to the moon, but there's a problem nobody wants to admit. Starship isn't ready. Not even close. The Block 2 version already failed its first 3 test flights. Flights 7, 8, and 9 all had major issues. For human missions, we need the Block 3, a completely different beast with orbital refueling and a working human landing system. But here's the kicker that should terrify NASA. Elon Musk himself admitted that orbital refueling won't be tested until next year. We're already halfway through 2025. Artemis 3 is supposed to launch in 2027. Do the math, the timeline is falling apart. The human landing system? We've only seen leaked photos of an elevator and a hatch door, that's it. Everything else is still theoretical. Would you bet humanity's return to the moon on theoretical hardware? NASA might have to. The Dragon revelation that changes everything. This is where the story takes a wild turn. What if Dragon, the spacecraft that's been quietly delivering astronauts to the space station for years, could actually become our lunar lander? Sounds impossible, right? Dragon was designed for short trips to the space station, just 400 kilometers up. The moon is 384,400 kilometers away. That's like comparing a neighborhood jog to running across the entire country. But Dr. Robert Zubrin and rocket scientist Homer Hickam saw something others missed. They proposed using Falcon Heavy to launch both a Crew Dragon and a separate lunar lander into lunar orbit. Revolutionary thinking that could save the entire Artemis program. The engineering nightmare begins. Here's where reality hits hard. Current Dragon carries 2,565 kilograms of propellant. That gives it a delta V of just 550 meters per second. Enough for space station operations, but nowhere near lunar requirements. For a moon mission, you need 2,400 meters per second total. That's over 4 times Dragon's current capability. The spacecraft would need a complete propulsion overhaul. Dragon's 16 Draco thrusters produce 400 newtons each. Fine for attitude control. The 8 Super Draco engines, they pack 568 kilonewtons combined, incredibly powerful for escapes, but not designed for long-duration deep space burns. Landing on the moon requires 1,870 meters per second. Taking off, another 1,870. We're talking about engineering challenges that would make rocket scientists lose sleep. But wait, it gets worse. The heat shield from Hell Propulsion is just the beginning of Dragon's problems. Dragon's current heat shield uses PICX material, perfect for Earth re-entry at 7.8 kilometers per second. But lunar return? That's 11 kilometers per second. The difference is literally life or death. At those speeds, the heat generated could turn Dragon into a fireball. The entire heat shield system would need complete redesign with materials that have never been tested for lunar missions. No pressure, right? Just the lives of 4 astronauts hanging in the balance. Radiation, the invisible killer. Space is trying to kill you in ways most people never consider. Between Earth and the Moon, there's no magnetic field protection. Cosmic radiation and solar particles bombard everything. Dragon's current hull wasn't built for deep space exposure. Astronauts would need advanced composite materials, polyethylene or boron nitride nanotubes, woven into the spacecraft structure. That's another 100 to 200 kilograms of added weight. But here's the terrifying part. Without proper shielding, astronauts could receive radiation doses equivalent to hundreds of chest X-rays every single day. That's not just dangerous, that's potentially fatal. Life support, the 14-day death trap. Dragon was designed for week-long missions. A lunar mission, minimum 14 days. The CO2 scrubbing system would need to handle 4 kilograms per day for 4 crew members. Current systems can't manage that load. Fail here, and the crew suffocates. Water recycling becomes critical too. You need 95% efficiency minimum. Current Dragon doesn't even have water recycling. It carries everything it needs. And then there's the airlock problem. For lunar surface walks, you need a chamber that lets astronauts exit without venting the entire cabin atmosphere. That's another 500 to 700 kilograms of equipment. Every gram matters when you're already pushing the limits. The weight crisis that breaks everything. Add it all up. Extra shielding, upgraded life support, more water, more fuel, airlock systems. The numbers pile up fast. Dragon's current configuration weighs about 6,000 kilograms empty. A lunar-capable Dragon? We're looking at 12,000 to 15,000 kilograms minimum. Falcon 9 can't handle that kind of mass for lunar injection. Not even close. So how do you solve the impossible? SpaceX has an answer. The Falcon Heavy miracle. This is where SpaceX's engineering brilliance shows. Falcon Heavy can deliver nearly 64 tons to orbit in expendable mode. That's triple Falcon 9's capacity. Here's the plan that could actually work. 2 separate launches. One Falcon Heavy sends the modified Dragon to orbit. Another deploys a custom propulsion module using hypergolic fuels, nitrogen tetroxide and monomethyl hydrazine. Both spacecraft rendezvous and dock in Earth orbit. Just like Neil Armstrong's historic Gemini 8 docking in 1966. The difference? This time, the destination is the Moon. Landing at the South Pole, the ultimate nightmare. The Moon's South Pole isn't like Apollo's landing sites. We're talking about permanently shadowed craters, rough terrain, and regolith. Lunar dust so fine it can destroy sensitive electronics. When Dragon touches down, that dust becomes a weapon. It coats everything, blinds sensors, and can cause critical system failures. The landing gear needs to handle not just the impact, but also the dust storm it creates. Dragon would need crushable landing pads and wide-set legs, similar to Apollo's Eagle. But unlike Apollo, these legs need to fold compactly for launch, then deploy reliably in the vacuum of space. One failure here, and the crew is stranded on the Moon forever. The moment of truth. Can SpaceX actually pull this off? The technical challenges are staggering, but consider this. They've already solved harder problems. Dragon has a perfect docking record with the space station. NASA has 50 years of orbital rendezvous experience. The basic technologies exist. They just need scaling up. And here's the thing nobody's talking about. This isn't just about technical capability. It's about speed and cost. While NASA burns $4 billion per SLS launch, SpaceX could potentially deliver lunar missions for a fraction of that cost. But there's a catch that could kill everything. Timeline reality that terrifies NASA. Artemis 3 is scheduled for 2027. Starship's human landing system is still years away from completion. SLS faces budget cuts and possible cancellation. Dragon modifications could potentially be ready faster. SpaceX already has the manufacturing infrastructure, the launch vehicles, and most importantly, the operational experience. But here's the question that keeps NASA administrators awake at night. Would NASA bet their entire lunar program on a spacecraft modification this ambitious? The political and technical risks are enormous. One failure and careers end. Reputations are destroyed. The entire space program could be set back decades. The backup plan that could save everything. What if Starship doesn't make the timeline? What if SLS gets canceled completely? Dragon might not just be a backup plan, it could become the primary path back to the moon. The engineering challenges are real. The costs are significant. But compared to starting from scratch with a new spacecraft, Dragon modifications represent the fastest path forward. The question isn't whether SpaceX can solve these technical problems. They've proven they can do the impossible before. The real question is whether they'll get the chance to try before it's too late. So here's what we know. NASA's budget is shrinking. Starship is behind schedule, and Dragon might be our wild card. SpaceX has turned impossible into routine before. Remember when landing rockets was science fiction? Now it's Tuesday. But this raises something bigger. Are we witnessing the end of government-led space exploration? When a private company can potentially reach the moon faster and cheaper than NASA, what does that mean for the future? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think Dragon can actually pull this off? Or is this just another overhyped SpaceX promise? And here's something to think about as you go about your day. 55 years ago, we put humans on the moon with computers less powerful than your smartphone. Today, we're struggling to go back with technology that would seem like magic to those Apollo engineers. Maybe the real question isn't whether we can return to the moon. It's whether we've forgotten how to dream big enough. If this got you thinking, hit that subscribe button. We're diving deep into the space stories that actually matter, not just the hype, but the real engineering, the real challenges, and the real people making it happen. What do you think comes next? Let me know in the comments. This is Space Core. Keep looking up. SpaceX manufacturing. Hook opening Boeing's Starliner. Still grounded after a full year, SpaceX, they just built and fired booster 16 in 10 days flat. But here's what nobody's talking about. While Boeing struggles with one spacecraft, SpaceX is building something called Giga Bays, massive factories designed to pump out thousands of Starships annually. We're talking about 36 rocket prototypes per facility, multiple facilities per site. How is this even possible? How does one company move this fast while the entire aerospace industry crawls at a snail's pace? The answer will shock you. Because SpaceX isn't just building rockets faster, they're completely rewriting the rules of manufacturing. And it's happening right now. Let's dive right in. SpaceX manufacturing revolution, the speed that broke physics. Here's the reality check that will blow your mind. 10 days, that's how long it took SpaceX to roll booster 16 to the pad. And static fire it after Flight 9. Boeing Starliner, still sitting there after 365 days of engineering reviews. But this isn't just about one rocket. This is about a manufacturing philosophy that's completely alien to traditional aerospace. While Boeing engineers are still debating thruster configurations from last year's flight, SpaceX has already moved 3 boosters through their production pipeline. Think about this. Booster 15-1 flew on Flight 8 and is now parked in Giga Bay 1. Booster 17 sits in what they call the rocket garden, which sounds peaceful until you realize it's actually a parking lot for rockets waiting their turn to launch. And Booster 18? It's already 19 ring segments deep into construction. But here's where it gets crazy. SpaceX isn't just building rockets fast. They're building an entirely new way to build rockets. The Giga Bay revolution. Remember Tesla's Gigafactory? That massive battery plant that everyone said was impossible? Well, SpaceX just said, hold my beer, and started building something they call a Giga Bay. This isn't just a bigger warehouse. We're talking about a facility designed to house 36 complete rocket prototypes simultaneously. Think about that number for a second. NASA has built maybe 20 rockets total in the past decade. SpaceX wants to park 36 in one building. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. They're not building just one Giga Bay. They're planning multiple Giga Bays at single sites. The math is staggering. If each bay holds 36 prototypes, 3 bays would mean 108 rockets in various stages of completion at any given time. Why would they need so many? Because SpaceX isn't thinking in terms of launches per year. They're thinking in terms of launches per day. The Florida Gambit. While everyone was focused on Starbase, SpaceX quietly secured something that changes everything. SLC-37 in Florida. This isn't just another launch pad. It's 3 times the size of their current Starship facility. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. The environmental impact statement doesn't just mention 2 launch towers.